played in classic cinema. Tonight's movie is 1958's Frankenstein's Daughter, directed by Richard E. Cunha.
Yes, the night holds terror, an evil reborn from the grave of Frankenstein, bringing a macabre nightmare to a teenage world of rock and roll emotions. For the first time, a female descendant of the infamous Frankenstein, deadlier, more terrifying than ever before. He needed her kiss to satisfy his desire, but he wanted her soul for the fiendish creation that was to rule the earth in terror.
I'm sure of one thing. You better hurry before the brain cells are damaged completely.
Frankenstein's daughter.
Now everything was ready. Who would be his first victim? Who will feel the cold sting of death?
Kill him. Kill him! Call her off. Don't make me shoot. Go ahead and shoot. You can't even feel it. Kill him! Back! Get back! Kill him!
For the most suspenseful and gripping moments you have ever spent, see this masterpiece of Scream a Second Terror. You will never forget it.
In the 1950s, there was growing social concern over a new problem: juvenile delinquency. Teenagers, their ardor no doubt fueled by rock and roll, were running amok all over the country, or at least that's the way everybody made it sound. Independent producers began making teen angst movies since teenagers were a steady audience and they had lots of money to spend. I mean, they were going to all the horror movies showing at the drive-ins, even the really sucky ones, so the idea to make movies about them was good. What was absolutely inspired, however, was the idea of taking two of the then most popular genres among teenagers and mixing them together. In 1957, a little production company called Sunset Productions made a film called Blood of the Werewolf. They secured distribution with American International, and with their unerring sense of what would sell, Nicholson and Arkoff changed the name of the movie to I Was a Teenage Werewolf. It was made for $82,000 and grossed $2 million. The teenage monster movie craze had begun. Teenage monster movies weren't just about teenagers turning into monsters. They were also about those good kids finding out what the monsters were about and trying to convince the authorities, who 9 times out of 10 didn't believe them, that they weren't responsible for whatever calamity had hit the small town these things invariably happened in. By the time the bullheaded sheriff, or whoever had to be convinced, came around, the kids had managed to find a way to defeat the monster once and for all, and the movies ended on a happy note, usually with the kids dancing to some sort of Rosette's rock and roll no self-respecting teenager would be caught dead listening to. These films invariably played to drive-in movies, usually with an equally sucky movie in the B slot, hence the title B-movie. After a while, however, the term became the name of a genre rather than the designation of what order it occupied on a marquee. Werewolf was followed by I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, Teenagers from Outer Space, The Blob, Monster on Campus, and tonight's movie, among many others. Frankenstein's Daughter was made in 6 days on an $80,000 budget, although the filmmakers managed to bring it in for $60,000. It concerns Dr. Carter Morton, an elderly scientist who, philanthropically, is trying to cure unknown diseases. Unknown to Dr. Carter, his assistant, Oliver Frank, who happens to be a descendant of Victor Frankenstein, is performing shadowy experiments in the back room of the laboratory with his assistant, Elsu, who is a descendant of the original Igor. Something that confuses me about this whole setup is the fact that Dr. Carter seems to be totally unaware that his own house contains a secret laboratory. In addition to that, all of this takes place right under the nose of Trudy, Carter's grandniece. I imagine that the inability to recognize the painfully obvious runs not only in their family, but those of her clueless friends as well. In addition to this, the whole thing takes place in a suburb of Los Angeles, but I suppose I can let that slide since the last place you expect to find a mad doctor is Glendale. The thing I really love about this is the rationale Oliver uses for putting a female brain in his creation. When his Igor stand-in Elsu comments, "Your father and grandfather never used a female brain," Oliver replies, "No, but now we're aware that the female brain is conditioned to a man's world. Therefore, it takes orders where the other ones didn't." Yeah, right. I don't care what era this movie was made in, that statement is complete baloney. That monster would be out shopping for shoes the second it was activated. Speaking of the monster, the reason it looks the way it does is because makeup man Harry Thomas had to fabricate the monster on set in 2 hours before it was to appear on the film. Not knowing that the title referred to the monster and not the creator, he grabbed actor Harry Wilson, who was playing the monster, quickly put the makeup on him, and presented it to director Richard Cunha. Cunha wasn't very pleased, as the monster didn't look even remotely like the girl it was supposedly made of, but they smeared some lipstick on the monster's mouth and hoped for the best. John Ashley was born on Christmas Day, 1934, in Kansas City, Missouri. Adopted and raised in Oklahoma, he earned a BA in economics from the Oklahoma State University and broke into pictures when visiting the set of 1956's The Conqueror. John Wayne noticed him and landed him a job in William Castle's TV series Men of Annapolis. While waiting to pick up his girlfriend at the offices of AIP, he was noticed by houselighter Lou Rusoff and ended up getting the male lead in the movie his girlfriend was auditioning for, 1957's Drag Strip Girl, but lost out the lead in Teenage Werewolf to Michael Landon. He appeared in 33 movies during his career, usually playing a troubled teen or the best friend of Frankie Avalon in the Beach Party movies. He did, however, take the starring role in 1965 Attack of the Eye Creatures, which was a remake of 1957's Invasion of the Saucermen. He was a fair singer and released a few albums after landing a recording contract. He doesn't sing in this movie, however. Those duties are handed to Harold Lloyd Jr., of all people. John Ashley died of a heart attack on October 3, 1997. Sandra Knight was born in 1940 in Pennsylvania. Apparently she's a little shy about sharing private information, since I can't find an exact date or city for her birth. She appeared in 8 films, making her first appearance in the 1958 classic Thunder Road with Robert Mitchum and Gene Barry. Her first husband was Jack Nicholson, whom she met in an acting class taught by Martin Landau. In addition to being a painter, she's also the author of I Found God in Hollywood. Director Richard Cunha remembered that when she saw herself in monster makeup for the first time, she got hysterical and broke down crying. He recalled it took some 20 expensive minutes to calm her down before filming could continue. Her last movie was 1994's Inevitable Grace. She currently lives in Hawaii. Donald Murphy was born on January 29, 1918 in Chicago, Illinois. He appeared in 9 movies and made 36 television appearances. His last film was 1971's Swamp Girl. Sally Todd was born on June 7, 1934 in Tucson, Arizona. She was a Playboy Playmate of the Month in February of 1957 and had a short career in film and television, usually playing just what she was, a beautiful girl. Her first film was 1956's The Revolt of Mamie Stover, and her last movie role was an uncredited appearance in G.I. Blues with Elvis. Harold Lloyd Jr. was born on January 25, 1931 in Los Angeles, California. The son of silent movie stars Harold Lloyd and Mildred Davis, Harold Jr. was a submissive homosexual who often came home battered after a rough date. His father was very open-minded about his son's sexual preferences, however, and supported his son both financially and emotionally until his death in 1971. After that, Harold Jr., who was also an alcoholic, was pretty much lost. He appeared in only 9 movies over the course of his short career, his last film being 1965's Mutiny in Outer Space. He died at the age of 34 from complications of a stroke on June 9, 1971 in Hollywood, California. Frankenstein's Daughter came in at about the midpoint of the teenage monster movie craze, and it contains all of the ingredients that make these movies so enjoyable. The good girl, the tease, the incredibly square boyfriend, the annoying best friend, the kindly scientist uncle, the evil assistants, and best of all, the studio's idea of rock and roll. Now, in every teen movie made in the 50s and 60s, a rock and roll song was shoehorned into the film to make it hip. There are very few examples of this actually working like it was supposed to. Ones that come to mind immediately are Rock Around the Clock by Bill Haley and the Comets in 1955's Blackboard Jungle, Jerry Lee Lewis pounding out the theme to 1958's High School Confidential from the bed of a truck, and to a lesser extent, Frank Tashlin's 1956 film The Girl Can't Help It, as that was a satire of the music business rather than a teen movie. The studios weren't interested in hiring actual performers unless they were doing exploitation movies such as Don't Knock the Rock, Don't Knock the Twist, or one of those horrendous, let's put on a show and prove to our parents rock and roll is really okay type films. So they just went with whomever they could get for the least amount of money, usually a group of no-name musicians who were about as trendy as Liberace. In this movie, Paige Cavanaugh and his trio provide the musical break, and their scene is probably my favorite in the entire film. One of the things that I love about this is that when the scene begins, the band is playing an instrumental with a saxophone prominently featured, but no one in the band is playing one. After that, however, Don holds up his hands and announces, "All right, cats, listen to me. You can take a rest out there now while Paige and the gang swing out on a little number that's dedicated to everyone with a special date." They then sing the immortal classic Special Date, a song that is absolutely guaranteed to get your toes tapping and your fingers snapping, or lacking that, induce projectile vomiting. The songs aren't the real show here, though. Now watch the bass player and the drummer when they're performing. The bass player seems to space out on the lyrics of the song they're singing every so often, and the drummer looks like he'd rather be getting a prostate exam than doing another take. This is particularly noticeable when Harold Lloyd Jr. takes center stage and sings the non-classic Daddy Bird, complete with pantomimed lyrics. Birdie's got to hide in the treetop. Kitty cat waiting to pounce. Oh, brother, I'm telling you. There's also one place in the song where the bass player screams in order to let the viewer know that they're listening to rock and roll. I got to figure that's what it's there for, since it is in no way part and parcel to the song at that moment. Incidentally, the reason for this particular interlude is that Don thought it would be funny to put on a caveman mask and scare Trudy. Trudy gets mad and forces Don to sing. Great, he screws up, so we all have to suffer. Before I close, let me tell you a little bit about the leader of the band in this picture, Paige Cavanaugh. Born in Cherokee, Kansas in 1922, Cavanaugh showed talent for music at an early age, teaching himself piano around the age of 10. He began working with the Ernie Williamson Orchestra in the 1930s while still a teenager, and after serving in the Army during World War II, earned a recording contract with his trio. After recording on several labels, he was hired by RCA Victor and became pretty well known. The Paige Cavanaugh Band in its various incarnations has served as both a studio and touring band for Frank Sinatra, Mel Torme, Doris Day, and many others. He's still performing, as a matter of fact, and has a webpage at, fittingly enough, paigecavanaugh.com. I checked his bio and discography, and oddly, they don't say much about tonight's movie. Go figure. So right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy Frankenstein's Daughter, right here on Cleveland Classic Cinema. Drummer man has a drumstick. Trumpet man has a horn. Yeah.